Course, yesterday I covered one of the biggest scam artists on YouTube, at least in the financial investment genre, Tom Nash, an irrefutable disinformation, pathological liar, investment idiot, and scammer. No doubt about it. Now, today, of course, I'm going to kind of take a 180. I'm not going to categorize Steve Keen and clearly into that batch. However, I am going to point to what I believe is clear evidence of Steve Keen doing a little grifting. And remember, folks, if you're on YouTube and you are trying to monetize your content, please show me someone who's not involved in grifting. Show me an example, because I haven't found one, and I've been analyzing, observing YouTube now for 20 fucking years. Okay? Now, earlier in the history of YouTube, of course, there were people who weren't grifting. There were a lot of people who weren't grifting. But over the years, it's increased to the point where today, as I've mentioned, I believe every single person who now starts a scam tube channel does so with the intent to make money. Nothing wrong with that, I suppose, right? But the problem is when you look at the platform, how it's designed, how exploitative it is, and what it allows, it becomes a problem, because YouTube allows scammers and scam artists and scams. In fact, YouTube allows scam ads. Most of the ads on YouTube are scams or are scammy, let's say. Okay? So when you are on a platform, you're trying to monetize your content, think about it. You're going to get pulled into scamming, whether you realize it or not. Are there people out there who are involved in YouTube scams without realizing it? Yeah, there's some. But most of the people who have been on it for a while, they know they're scamming and they subconsciously push it aside. And the scamming starts with the ads. If you are allowing YouTube to monetize your channel, you are in a partnership with YouTube. You are posting ads, making money. Well, you're not posting ads. You're allowing YouTube to post ads on your content, and you are making money from that. That means you're a partner with the scam company called YouTube. You're a partner in crime with YouTube, in my opinion. Okay? Affiliate links, I've talked about that before. They're either scammy or pure scams. That's why they're going to YouTube. You understand? So we're going to talk about what I believe Mr. Keen is doing, a little grifting. I'll go ahead and tell you. Basically, Steve Keen comes out with this whole premise. He's been saying it now for many years. I'm not going to put the hammer down too hard on Steve, because we have had some discussions. I'll get to that a little bit later. But Steve claims that he predicted the financial crisis. This is the claim he's made for several years. And I just think that he's ignorant of the fact that he didn't predict the financial crisis. I don't think he understands what a prediction is. That's what we're going to talk about today. That's what today's lecture is about. What is a prediction, right? We're going to talk about all that. The point is that Mr. Keen, using this claim, has a YouTube channel now. He's putting a lot of clickbait and basically saying the collapse is coming, fear-mongering. I predicted the crisis. Enroll in my economics course to help you prevent losing money in the crisis. That's kind of, in so many words, the message that he's delivering. I believe that's a grift. First and foremost, it addresses whether or not he predicted the crisis. Second of all, did his so-called prediction have any specific forecasts that allowed people to make money and or avoid losing money? No. We're going to go over that here in today's lecture. And then third of all, ask yourself the question, do you think it is, you have different levels of responsibility, of moral aptitude, let's say. And I think it's fair to say when you're talking about someone from academia, the standard is much higher. So ask yourself the question, what would you think of a professor who goes on YouTube and posts clickbait in order to get you to subscribe to his courses? And he uses kind of a current financial situation, putting out panic to do so. First and foremost, anybody that's doing that, in my opinion, is scammy. It's a scam. Okay? The question in Mr. Keen's case is, well, did he predict the financial crisis? If he did do that and he's still doing the clickbaity stuff, I think that's scammy. I think that's a grift. I could do that legitimately, right? Because I have the most accurate track record on the financial crisis anywhere in the world. And if anyone wants to refute that, I have $1 million backing that claim. And I've had that now for about 10 years, but I've had the monetary challenge for about 15 years, going on 16 years. Raised it from the very first 10,000, quickly to 50,000, then 100,000, and then we raised it to $1 million about 10 years ago. Okay? So, and if you don't know that or you don't believe that, I think it would be in your best interest to take some time and to go over, and I would say about the links you see there, that's on archive.org. Those are essentially 2 chapters from the books that I wrote. And those are, for the most part, it's not everything. There's also articles that I wrote that you can find on my website. But this is the gist of it, these two chapters that show that nobody can come close to me. And I say it's important if you don't know this. Why? Because think about it for a second. You don't know who the fuck I am. You never heard about me. Yet you hear about all these people being promoted as they predicted the financial crisis. Why haven't you heard about me? Once you understand that, then you're going to understand why the fuck I was banned, why I continue to be banned, and take a look at the people who are being promoted and have been for years as having predicted the financial crisis, although they did not do it. They have one thing in particular in common. Every single one of those people. They happen to be from the same ethnic group. And then when you look at the portals out there that control, right, the media, well, you're going to see another common thread. Okay, that's a whole nother topic of discussion. Okay, the most important thing is the people out there who have been promoted as having predicted the financial crisis, whether it's some who could kind of claim that they did casually, like the fund managers who made money off the crisis, they kind of didn't really. It's not a prediction. Making a bet is not a prediction. A prediction on a grand scale of something unprecedented as what we saw requires transparency, requires a massive amount of publicly available data and analyses, such as what I put through in 2 books, by the way. Okay? And it also requires investment actionability. So we're going to take a look at all these criteria. This is, to be honest, without even thinking about it, I hope that this is, I could see me discussing this for 3 hours. And I know most people won't stick around. There's probably some of these grifters that try and denounce me and defame me because they all want to learn, on YouTube. All these little guys I've exposed as frauds because they have no value. They're a bunch of fucking twits. And they're going to write, take notes and learn. Okay? Once again, let me make this clear. And I'll probably, if I remember to do so, I'll probably continue with this going forward many times. I hold the leading investment forecasting track record since I have been doing so officially 2006 to current. Okay? I back that by $1 million. If you don't need to show me your record, because nobody listening to this has a fucking track record. You can go to anyone in the world that you want. You can use their track record. If you think Michael Burry has a better track record than me on the financial crisis, you can submit that. There's two offers. My track record since 2006 to current on all my forecasting, and there's the financial crisis. Okay? You can take anyone's track record that you want to put up against mine. I'm backing those two claims with $1 million. Nobody in the world's ever done that. Why is that? Ask yourself why. Well, we have maybe one of two answers. Either I'm a nut, and if that's the case, I'm clearly wrong and you can win $1 million, right? Or maybe it's that the people that you're hearing about over and over again for years by the media telling you that they're experts, they're really not experts. They're really con artists and broken clocks. You understand. Okay? This is all very important because it addresses the issue of credibility. Okay? So, we're going to move on now. And of course, you see the picture here. It's very important because, take a look. Lex Fridman, I guess he changed his name from Friedman because, he doesn't want to sound obviously, you know what he is. We're going to call him Lex Friedman because I can guarantee you that's what his original name is. Anybody on these guys' shows, you know the problem. If it's kind of like if somebody's in the media. If they're in the media, they're bought off. They can't be trusted. It's just a fact. Okay? If someone is on some shill disinfo channel like Joe Rogan or Lex Friedman, Patrick Bet-David, Tucker Carlson, the list goes on. You know they're not legit. Please show me someone legit that's ever been on these guys' channels. If you go, I'm sure there's people that thinks, most of you probably think they're legit. You're the same people that watch these channels because you're fucking ignorant. You're fucking stupid. Okay? Someone of my credibility, you would think I'd be on those shows. They want to talk to me. No. You see, the object is to obfuscate, is to confuse, is to put out disinformation and bullshit. And you know why? Because all those channels, whether it's Joe Rogan or Patrick Bet-David or whomever, they're all selling snake oil. You know that, right? They're all selling you snake oil. Joe Rogan sells nutritional supplements, which anyone who sells nutritional supplements, I'm telling you right now, is a fucking scammer. That's just, you can just write it down. I mean, I've proven that over the years. That whole product is perfect for scammers. That's why Alex Jones, that's what he does, right? And you also have, he also promotes gambling. Patrick Bet-David, I'm surprised he doesn't do supplements. He probably will. He's into the whole coaching and mentoring, right? So you don't want to have credible people. You want to have people that base things on conspiracies and scams and disinfo. And the last thing that's going to happen on any of these channels is going to be pushback. You're not going to have a critical interview. You never have that. It doesn't exist anymore on these platforms because these platforms are all about ad-based scams, ad-based content. You understand that? It's amazing. I'm one of the biggest critics of media out there. Nobody can refute that. Perhaps the biggest critic. If you look at the work that I've done over the past 2 decades exposing the media fraud. But I'll tell you this right now. The world was much better before the internet, before these platforms. We were much better when the media controlled the distribution of information. That's right. You're hearing this from me. Believe it or not. Why? Because at least then you had some certain standards. I'm not saying that they were always correct or always telling the truth. But I think by and large, back before the internet, you probably had, 85 to 95% reliable, factual, accurate information with, thrown into some subjectivity, right? Subject to opinion. You had a certain code, a certain ethical code, and you had standards, right? Now, if you look at what's happened to the media since the internet, of course, those standards have gradually withered away because it has kind of partnered up with this alternative media. Today, what you have is every idiot with a Wi-Fi connection and a laptop now, they want to tell you about what's going on in the world. They want to tell you that they're investment experts. They want to tell you that they're medical experts. You have zero standards now. Zero. And the problem is that this disinformation is causing big issues, right? This is why we have scam world. That's what we have now. We live in a world of scams. So we were much better off 30 years ago, 40 years ago, when the media, and I'm talking mainstream media, controlled everything. They weren't perfect. They got stuff wrong. They did use propaganda and mislead, but relatively speaking, compared to today, it was much better back then. Now you've got airhead scammers out there who are leading the discourse, right? Joe Rogan, complete fucking idiot airhead. And the problem is he's like Oprah Winfrey. He gives a life to scammers. The scammers get on Oprah Winfrey, and what happens? Well, their careers are launched globally. Whether it's Robert Kiyosaki, Tony Robbins, James Arthur Ray, Dr. Oz, Dr. Phil, all these guys, right? Joe Rogan is the internet version of that. He launches the careers of all these scammers. Okay? Now, I'm not going to sit here and call Steve Keen a scammer because I don't think that he is. But you can grift and not be a scammer. I think he's doing a little grifting through desperation, and I don't think he understands what he's doing. And I think that he thinks he predicted the financial crisis. And but this just all goes to show, folks, once you're in a platform where there's no pushback, and this is exactly why today I am coming out and I am exposing what Mr. Keen is doing, and I'm exposing the fact that he did not predict the financial crisis. And Steve, if you're listening, you know me. We've communicated. You know how to reach me anytime you want. We'll go up head to head on a live, neutral platform and debate and discuss. So before I begin with that, let me just go ahead and get back to Steve Keen specifically. So I have been in contact with Steve Keen for now the better part of 2 years. When I first made a comment on his channel about, I think he had a video like, don't study economics. So let me kind of give you a little backstory on Mr. Keen so you'll understand where he's coming from. So Steve basically thinks that he wants to think that he's not part of the establishment economics, right? He's the rogue economist. He wants to think that he gets no publicity because he's kind of outside the norm. So what is the norm? What's the economic establishment? The economic establishment out there is basically the neoliberal guys, the neoliberal economists, the modern monetary theory, right? If you all don't know what neoliberalism is, it's the things that I've been railing against since I wrote America's Financial Apocalypse. It's neoliberalism is they advocate for free trade, for basically gentrification. They want to give you the guise of lower taxes, when in reality it's actually bad for the working person. So it's more of kind of like they have many things in common with the libertarian school of thought. The scam artists. But essentially, if think about neoliberalism as a force for corporations, and very wealthy individuals. It's not something that's good for entire nations, that is, the societies, or the individuals, the consumers, the workers. Okay? That's basically what neoliberalism is. So the economists out there, the establishment, they're all neoliberalists basically. And if you're not a neoliberalist economist, then you're kind of not considered part of that group. But let me be clear. If you are an academic economist, you are still in that group. And that's why Steve Keen, despite the fact that he thinks that he doesn't get interviewed, he gets plenty of fucking promo. Okay? And so we have been in discussion because I've been telling Steve Keen, because he told me to send him my material. I said, look, on his video, Don't Study Economics. He's basically one of these guys, well, economics is bad, but I'm going to show you the real economics, which is not, that's really not the situation. I'm not going to get into that. But I said, well, I think I did pretty good for myself. I didn't study economics. I studied chemistry and biochemistry and biophysics, and I predicted the financial crisis with more accuracy than anyone. So he said, oh, show me your material. So we started an email exchange. I showed him my material, and it's been 2 years almost now. He hasn't gotten to it. It's been delay. Oh, I'm busy. I've sent him ChatGPT analyses of my work, including a comparison, a direct head-to-head between me and him, and it's delay. And the reality is I know he doesn't want to confront it. And I'm trying to explain to him, Steve, this is critical. I have been left out of the discussion, the discourse. I'm erased. You're an economist. That's why I wanted to appeal to him, because as an academic economist, they understand the need to include me into this. I've been erased, but he doesn't want to do so, because I think that he knows that if he does, it completely wipes out his claims of having predicted the financial crisis. That's why he doesn't want to do it. That's what my belief is. Steve, if I'm wrong, contact me and let's go. So I at this stage, I've given up. I'm not going to contact him anymore. He just keeps brushing me off. And the latest is, I've got to get this book out. He's been talking about this book now I've got to get it out. And apparently he's going to release a book on climate change. And this is going to be something about how the economists have got it wrong on climate change. They're not budgeting enough. We're going to have a disaster, an imminent disaster. And he mentioned this about this climate change book on our discussion recently. And I told him, I said, Steve, climate change is not it's funny because he actually referred to it as global warming, which addresses another issue. I mean, you all do know that they changed. It was global warming 15 years ago and before, and they changed it to man-made climate change. And you know why? Because the global warming forecast predictions were failing. So they had to change it to something that you can't argue against. Climate change. It's getting cold. It's getting warm. It's man-made. You understand the scam, right? So I'm telling Steve, I said, Steve, well, and it depends upon what you're talking about with the claims. But essentially the claims for climate change are this imminent human disaster, right? All life on Earth essentially is going to disappear, which is complete bullshit. And I told Steve, I said, well, Steve, I don't agree with that. Of course, obviously, you're writing a book about it, and you have someone you're not going to be open to listening to it. And he's telling me that he talks with all the economists or all the scientists that do this. And I said, Steve, I'm a scientist. I've got a graduate degree in physical sciences, and I'm telling you, it's a bunch of baloney. Combined with my expertise in the capital markets, understanding what generates deeply entrenched narratives when you have money involved and politics involved, you see. My well-rounded understanding. Okay, and I said, well, Steve, why don't you talk to William Happer, Dr. William Happer, Professor William Happer? Because he doesn't believe in all these claims. And then he begins without knowing. I said, "You know who William Happer is?" He says, "Oh, no, but there's a lot of crackpot scientists out there," is what he says. So he doesn't know who William Happer is, and so he's basically calling him a crackpot. And I said, "Well, Steve, uh, William Hapner is a very distinguished professor of physics at Princeton. Princeton's got the #1 physics department in the world, by the way." And I had to explain to Steve, Steve, he's a world authority in spectroscopy. Now, if you all don't understand how spectroscopy relates to the arguments of climate change and carbon dioxide, you might want to do a little digging. I'm not going to get into it. Okay, I know spectroscopy, fairly well, considering that's a significant portion of chemistry. Okay, so he just wants to write it off. But anyway, I'm not going to talk about that anymore. I just wanted to give you guys some perspective. That's an establishment. So he's siding with the establishment narrative, climate change. But he wants to tell you that it's just that all the economists have got it wrong. He's got it right, and they've all got it wrong. You see? So let's get back to Lex Friedman. Folks, anybody on Lex Friedman, I'm not going to say everybody, because he will have some PR people on there, some figures on there, but for the most part, so think about, he has India's Prime Minister, Modi, on there. Okay, Modi, fine, he's a Prime Minister, which of course he got Modi on there because Lex Friedman is being supported by the Mossad. He's a Mossad agent. You all know that, right? And then he has NVIDIA's CEO on there, who has become a disgusting fucking degenerate, poster child of the AI bubble, in my opinion. And this is coming from Mr. King of NVIDIA, me. I'm the guy, the first analyst to come out and declare NVIDIA as the greatest company presenting long-term growth in the world back in 2009. That's in my research, the first issue of my Intelligent Investor research, by the way. Anyway, so if you look at Lex, and I'm going to call him Friedman because that's what his real name is. And I'm not going to get into Friedman here, right? But you would think I'd be on all these shows. What I have to say, what I have done. No one else has done what I have done in the areas that I have done so, whether it's discussing America's healthcare system, the financial crisis, what have you. All these areas, right? But you see, these disinfo guys, Friedman, Rogan, so on and so forth, they don't want credible people. They want people that will be more supportive of conspiracies, you understand. Steve Keen fits that because he's not the typical economist. He's like, oh, well, but I've heard this, but now I'm hearing what Steve had to say, you understand. So that whole narrative, that MO supports the whole grifting mechanism of these channels, you see. Perfect case, Joe Rogan, who's explicitly involved in nutritional supplements, right? Well, the medical establishment's not trustworthy. You understand now why Joe Rogan was platforming all these fraudsters during the COVID pandemic, right? He was promoting all this bullshit. Why? Because he's selling nutritional supplements. That's part of his universe of scamming. Why did no one else bring this up, right? Why am I the only person to bring this up? Think about this. It's not that difficult to uncover. It just shows, once again, there's nothing out there that's worth a damn. It's all a bunch of fucking lies and crackpots and conmen. That's what's out there, folks. That's what's out there. I'm the only guy delivering the facts. You understand? See, the facts don't pay the bills. The facts don't give a large following. You see? Because people at some point can't handle the cold, hard, full truth. You got to be on one side of the field or the other. You can't give the full truth because at some point you're going to alienate most people. Most people want to feel good, but at some point I'm gonna insult you or piss you off because that's what the truth does. It's not 100% to your liking, you see, and that's why you have narratives out there. You've got the MAGA narrative, you've got the liberal narrative, but you don't have the truth, you see, because the truth is going to alienate you. People want to be on what they think is the winning team. You understand, whether it's in politics or investments or what have you. So you have basically white and black, night and day. That's kind of explains what's going on. And the reality is it's neither. There are nuances involved. Same thing with the whole pandemic thing. You heard extremes. You heard the government's version, which was a lot of bullshit, a lot of exaggerated things, was cherry picked, and then you heard the alternative, which was even more full of shit. You didn't hear the in between, and that was what I presented. You see, you didn't hear the reality, which had truths from both sides. This is how the whole discourse is run currently in the world. Okay. So, and for those of you who are going to be patient enough to sit back and listen to this, you're going to learn a lot. And you're going to learn this is not available anywhere in the world. You're going to learn more about the financial crisis because I can tell you right now, 19 out of 20 people easily do not know what caused the financial crisis. This is why over the past several years, and I'm talking since about 2016, 17, if you go through, you can go on ScamTube and see the archived videos. Everybody's been talking about a housing collapse. So it's going to be like the 2008 financial crisis, right? You've been hearing about that for several years. Stupid fucking idiots don't even know what caused the financial crisis. Okay? So take a look here. And you can read for yourself. To claim to have truly predicted the 2008 financial crisis, you must have, this is at bare minimum, mapped securitization architecture in granular detail. If you don't know what that is, look it up. Securitization architecture just talks about the securitization, which I wrote about in my book. No one else wrote about it. And you can see that right here. Go online, you see the, okay. Look at this fucking masterpiece. Fucking masterpiece. A book that's still valuable 20 years later and will be valuable for the next 20 years. No book has ever been written like this, ever. And this has cemented my place in history forever as one of the greatest forecasts ever. And as, by the way, these two works of art, these two books, have, according to ChatGPT, have cemented me as the most accurate crisis forecaster in history, by the way. So you can just go through here and read about the securitization, okay? Okay. So you must have discussed how all this is going to create contagion. Okay, it wasn't just a collapse in the real estate market because you see you had many points of leverage that were created, which is what I wrote about in that chapter. Okay, I explained what was going on. I explained the role of the subprimes, of the GSEs, Fannie and Freddie, of the banks, what was going on with all this stuff, and the fact that these mortgages, people didn't even know this. Nobody in the world fucking knew this except people in the institutions, okay? That mortgages were being securitized. This is what I wrote. I'm the first person in the world to actually write about this in that book. I explained that mortgages were being securitized. They were being transformed into securities that were bought and sold on markets that were not accessible to the retail public. They were institutions on the asset-backed securities market. of which included mortgage-backed securities. I explained all of this. I explained that basically every single payment that you make is securitized. Credit card payments, even alimony payments. If you have been divorced, like some of the loser grifters on YouTube, because they tried to attack me, and basically they run their whole marriage and they lost their family, then you're paying alimony. Those are securitized into payments into structured products that are sold to institutional investors. Credit card payments, car loans, even mobile phone contracts, your cable bill, all of this, they're made into securities. I wrote about this. I explained it all 20 years ago. Unprecedented. No one else has done this. Or maybe they copied me since that time. Easy to write about it after the financial crisis. I'm the only one that did it before the crisis. Okay? So I explained how all this was working. And how, Fannie and Freddie's role in this. You can just go there and read the chapter. Okay? Number 2, quantify housing collapse magnitude. That is to say, you have to explain, if you're going to talk about problems in the real estate market, you got to give us some forecasts. You can't just wave your fucking hands. Oh, there's a real estate bubble. Oh. You have to come out with specific forecasts. Okay? And my forecasts were 30 to 35%, with 50 to 55% in select hotspots, regional hotspots, which I identified. All of that was accurate. 5 years before the bottom, I predicted the bottom in that book. Okay? Name institutional nodes. And what that refers to is, and by the way, I didn't make this up. This was created, these criteria are created by ChatGPT. If you ask it for a true prediction, you can't just come out and be general. Okay? Institutional nodes means when you're talking about potential failure of institutions and their involvement in the crisis, including regulators, including the credit rating agencies. I wrote about all of that. I predicted a financial crisis. I predicted a bailout for Fannie and Freddie. Right? Nobody did any of this stuff. Nobody. Write it down. That's why I'm confidently have backed my financial crisis track record with $1 million. Okay? Number 4, provide stepwise contagion mapping. That is to say, describing how a collapse in the real estate bubble will lead to financial contagion, economic contagion. And I mapped it out. Okay? So, and if you don't understand that after reading the chapter, go through on the website and see for yourself through the ChatGPT analyses. Okay? You can go through here. Okay. And by the way, we're changing the track record used to be just one page. The process now, because my track record is so extensive and so vast, what I cover, the areas. Nobody else in the world probably I would say covers all these categories. Okay, but we're going through it and segmenting everything. It's probably going to take a couple of years, I'll be honest, maybe even longer. But already, the crisis. You can just click this research publications. These 2 are done. And the 2 bottom ones are done. China track record, U.S. healthcare. But anyway, let me just kind of get back here and show you. You can just go through and you can click these, or actually, let me show you here. Yeah, so every single article, okay, you'll notice this blue box. Click here for Mike Stat. This is 2008 financial crisis track record and overall investment research track record. So every article at the top is going to have this box. Okay? just like at the bottom. We'll have a probably like a copyright box, but take a look. You can click the box and instantly get access to the most important material on the financial crisis, my track record. Okay? And so this is just the track record overall. This addresses the track record on the financial crisis. You can see the links here. These are the links to my materials, and these are the specific links from the books. And this is the WAMU complaint to the SEC. And these are the, well, this is an Anthropic audit, and the rest of these are ChatGPT, maybe some Grok here. Yeah. So down here is the ChatGPT, and then the Grok. So it's pretty massive, the evidence. So if you want to challenge me, I'd say you better go through all this fucking material like with a fine-tooth comb before you even try, or you're going to lose your $1 million. Now, anyone who's serious, you're going to have to sign an NDA, and you're going to have to disclose who you are, everything. There's a whole process. Contact us. You'll go through the vetting process, and we've made it where there's no hecklers, no bullshit artists are going to be. We're not going to play any fucking games here. So you can just go through it. I'm just showing you all where the information is for the future. Okay. Irrefutable. Okay. So, and it's also important to, and you can see this article here, Anthropic audits my track record. And you can just see here, take a look. Predicted 30 to 35% average home price correction. Forecast 55 to 60%. Hot spots like Vegas, California, Florida. This is actually 10 to 12 million foreclosures, not 15. This is a mistake. It's not true. Name specific subprime lenders to short, Novastar, accredited lenders, Fremont, all failed bankrupt. Fannie, Freddie as well, right? Countrywide. Just take a look. Okay? There's no one that can come close to this track record. And then we have even the market forecast, the Dow 6500. That was not only in the book in chapter 17, it was also repeated on my website and elsewhere in 2008 in at least 2 articles, August and I think November of 2008. And then, of course, on March 10th, 2009, that was the call to start buying the market when it was at the very bottom. Okay. This has never been done in history. I hope you all know that. Okay. So you can go through this. It's a very long article. It's all analyses. ChatGPT. You can see this is the specific forecasts. Take a look at that. So you understand the granularity of the analysis. It wasn't just, oh, real estate bubble. It's going to cause a collapse, right? I was very specific about exactly what would happen and how it would all play out. Nobody else came close to this. Yet I'm banned even 20 years later now. This is the greatest forecast in history. The most specific, most accurate. Nobody can come close to this ever. Right? You need to realize that, convince yourself of that, then you'll understand the true magnitude of what I do and why I've been banned and really what's going on out there. If this has been done to me, what the hell have you been telling? What are they telling you all? What's even believable, right? So, take a look. Summary of accuracy. Housing price decline, national and regional, exact. Foreclosure totals, accuracy level, exact. GSE, that's Fannie and Freddie, collapse and bailout, accuracy level, exact. Mortgage-backed securities, derivatives implosion, accuracy level, exact. Look at that. This is all described before years before this happened. Bank failures, exact. Stock market collapse, exact. Policy response, bailouts, Fed expansion, accurate in principle. Predicted bailouts disguised as buyouts. Depth of recession, modern Great Depression. broadly accurate. So this is broadly accurate. It's saying because when you factor in what's the bailouts, the stimulus, what looks like maybe they, and of course the narrative is, well, the Fed and the government prevented a depression. No, they didn't. No, they didn't. They didn't. All they did was redirect capital and create illusions and delay things. This is why many people really aren't that much better off since the crisis, even today. It was a permanent disruption, and it was masked by massive fiscal stimulus and monetary stimulus, right? The banking bailout, the fiscal stimulus, and the Fed. Let's not forget about the Federal Reserve, which smashed interest rates down for several years, which was another banking bailout, which also allowed all these investment groups, private equity funds, to do what? To buy up all these apartment complexes and houses, which is one reason why we have the housing situation that we have today, which is also one reason why we have this very speculative asset, well, many asset bubbles, not just in the stock market, precious metals, cryptocurrencies, right? So imagine exactly, and not only that, of course, the theme was also long-term problems with healthcare, with trade, right? Think about all this. So we faced a Great Depression. There's no doubt about it. There's absolutely no doubt about it. But you see, the economists out there, you know, all the guys that the media tells you that they're geniuses, and I can tell you right now, show me one economist out there who can go head to head with me on these topics that I cover. They can't. They're simpletons. You see, the economists want to tell you that there was no Great Depression because we didn't see, 22% unemployment or whatever it was. Guess what? They're going back to one data point in the 30s. One data point. If you're going back and looking at things from one data point, you're a fucking idiot. You don't know anything about statistics, number one. Number two, during that period, as I've mentioned many times, we didn't have food stamps. We didn't have Social Security. We didn't have Medicare, Medicaid. Right? You didn't have any of that shit. Didn't have unemployment insurance. You had none of that stuff. You understand? So if you remove all those things, oh, you better believe there was a fucking depression. In addition to all the economic stimulus. Anyway, I could go on and argue this all day. Take a look at the actual investment strategies. Now, these are the shorting results of shorting. If you look at Chapter 12 of the Cashing In of the Real Estate Bubble, which was focused specifically on making money off the real estate bubble, you'll notice that I specifically said you should, shorting is risky. Puts is a more conservative, safer way to play this, right? So if you had bought puts, you could have made thousands upon thousands of percent gains, not just 100% in the case of shorting, but thousands of percent, which this article, I believe it does go into that. So you just take a look, folks. This is why I'm saying, and the fact that, think about it, you all are just now hearing this for the first time. Think about it. Why am I still banned? Are these guys out there who claim to be legit and want to show you the truth? Why aren't they having me on their little show? Because they know that they're scammers and they fooled you people. No one out there is legit if they're not talking about me and my accomplishments and trying to interview me. That's a fact. Okay? Anyone who's talking about these critical issues, if they're not having me on their fucking channel, on their show or whatever, then they're frauds. They're hiding something. It's a fact. Okay? It's irrefutable. Go through. So I'm saying, go through my track record and you'll see. You can just compare all these people. So I'm showing you this because It relates to Steve Keen, obviously, right? So you can see this is Anthropic's assessment of the accuracy of my forecasts. Accuracy, detail, specificity, insight, foresight. There you go. Okay. And this is the mechanism that I showed of contagion, mortgages, MBS, derivatives, systemic crisis. You see that? And you can see this compares the people out there um, who the media wants to tell you that predicted it, right? And this goes through and just shoots it all down. There you go. It's a nice little summary table here. Okay. See that? And I'm banned. Why is that? Because you're being lied to by everybody out there. There's not a single motherfucking honest person out there. Write that down. That seems like kind of a crazy thing. Guess who's telling you? Who's telling you that? Me. Clearly, I know what the fuck is going on. I'm living this. I've lived this. I know what's going on. All the shit out there you're hearing is disinformation. It's clickbait. It's bullshit. Everything. You know, it's no longer a world of alternative media horseshit through Alex Jones and Jeff Rentz and all these frauds. The whole system is bullshit. That's why I say the mainstream media has merged into dog shit now. They're partners with the alternative guys. Think about it. Look at Tucker Carlson. He was working for the scam Fox, and he gets booted. What's he doing now? Well, he's all conspiracy now. Anybody on that he interviews is conspiracy horseshit. That's all. He's doing it for the clicks, right? That's what, see, folks, this is what these guys do. They don't want the truth. The truth can be inconvenient for them and their sponsors, who are corporate sponsors. What they want is to platform people who are going to get them views and clicks. You understand? That's fact. Take a look. Take a look. Perfect accuracy on major predictions. This is me. Housing, 30 to 35% average decline. Actual outcome, 33%. This forecast was made 5 years before the housing market bottomed, by the way. That one prediction in and of itself is enough to give someone legendary status as an applied economics analyst and forecaster. That one, because no one else made this forecast, by the way. Hotspots, Vegas, Phoenix, exact, boom. Foreclosures, Fannie, Freddie, MBS collapse. Just take a look. Take a look. $20-year record. Here's just going through and looking at my biotech course. I cover telemedicine 7 to 12 years early before anybody else. Healthcare analysis was 8 to 14 years in advance of all the healthcare experts. This was from the chapter in America's Financial Apocalypse, by the way. This doesn't even include my healthcare book of 2009. Take a look. Conclusion, Mike Stathis' 2006-2007 analysis represents the most accurate, detailed, and actionable pre-crisis forecast in financial history, with no peer comparison in modern analytical record. Now, these are the put options, the possible gains if you had bought puts. Take a look. And this is a quotation from the book. You know, it's funny because this reminds me of this fat guy, this fraudulent accountant, the dishonest accountant guy who got pissed off that I exposed his grift, and then he later lost his wife and family through a divorce because of all of the him trying to go after me and defame me. It caused so much stress in his life that he lost 2 jobs and a family. What a fucking loser! This fucking fraud. I don't want to just give the guy any. I don't want to promote him, but this guy, this fraudster, he actually wanted to tell people that after I was criticizing this Everything Money channel, the frauds, the scammers who are trying to get newbies into shorting stocks, he had the nerve, because this shows how stupid he is, to come out and say, oh, he wrote in a book to short stocks, so he's a hypocrite. Guess what, fat boy? I'm a world authority. I can do that, number one. Number two, I was right. This is the world's best call in history. You understand that? No, you're too stupid. You're a dumbass. You see? Let's think about it, folks. This is the greatest call in investment history. It was written in a book for $25. Everybody and their mother could have made a fortune if you knew about me and my book. But I was banned. Think about that one. You had access instead to Peter Schiff's book, which was mostly wrong. If you had gone by the recommendations in his book, you would have gotten your fucking ass handed to you. You understand? It's all factual. Take a look. So take a look at this here. This is a quote from the book. So I'm advocating puts over shorting. So if you bought the puts, you can see from this analysis, the Anthropic says you could have achieved 5 times to 50 times your returns. 50 times. You understand what that means? You would have made more than all these guys that the media touts in some fictional Hollywood movie, The Big Short. You would have made more than they did. They didn't make 50 times their money. They didn't make 30 times their money. You understand that? And it even goes and says, deep in the money puts, you could have made up to 100 times return. Simply, and by the way, don't ever ask me. I'm not writing any books ever again. It's not going to happen. All my shit's in my research, which is off limits to anybody on ScamTube, FYI, because you're too fucking stupid to interpret it. You got it? Just buy the S&P. That's what you do. Take a look. Take a look. Take a look. Once again, you can take a look at the article, go through this yourself. Okay. It's got all the detail here. Okay. You can read it for yourself. And once again, it's Anthropic audits right here. Okay. If you're a wise person, believe me, it has nothing to do with me, per se. If you're a wise person, you will spend a large portion of time, and I'm talking a lot of time and effort, going through starting with my pre-crisis track record. You're going to go through all this material. Once you do that, first of all, you're going to have a better understanding. You're going to have a greater understanding of the crisis. And then you're going to understand why I'm the only person who can claim who really predicted the crisis. And then certainly you're going to understand that clearly no one comes remotely close to me in this predictions. And then you're going to understand, wait a second, this guy has been banned. Why? What did he write in his books to get him banned? Nothing. Zero. Nothing. Nothing. Except things that threatened to take down the system. I wasn't even politically incorrect, unless you want to consider that I criticized affirmative action and that I criticized societal, kind of like and back then I was talking about things which they consider anti-woke today. I was writing about those things. I didn't do too much because I didn't want to get too much into it because I didn't want to get banned. But I wrote about those things a little bit. And you see, I threatened to take down the system. I exposed Wall Street fraud. I exposed executive stock options as a complete fraud, a legalized mechanism of fraud. I exposed everything. I exposed free trade. You understand? And maybe most importantly, I exposed this collapse that would have threatened to have taken money away from Wall Street. Okay? I was banned because of that and because I happen to be not of a particular minuscule ethno-religious minority. For those two reasons. If I were of a certain ethno-religious minority, I would have gotten platformed. I would have gotten interviewed. Not to the extent, of the disinfo guys that became celebrity stars, but I would have gotten a good amount of attention from the liberal shows, you understand? Because if you look at the things that I wrote about, and I'm not a liberal by any stretch of the imagination, I don't really prescribe to either of those doctrines. I think it's kind of foolish and childish and dangerous to do so. But that's what they want you to do in America's fake democracy, one side or the other. But if you look at the things that I exposed and wrote about in terms of the inequality, I'm the first person to equate inequality to that period in the world. Inequality became a hot topic of discussion after the financial crisis, you'll note. I'm the guy that wrote about it before it was obvious. In terms of how I wrote about how outsourcing, free trade were destroying U.S. middle class, how this combined with employer-based health care to make things even worse. Once you lose your job, you lose access to health care, affordable health care. And once that happens, you could face medical bankruptcy, right? You understand? I'm the first person to tie all these things together according to the ChatGPT analysis. Nobody else did that. So when you read that material, the material besides the financial crisis, one would think that I'm maybe kind of fighting for the common person, kind of more on the liberal side, right? Well, guess what? I didn't get promoted by PBS. They promoted con artists like Chris Martenson, for instance. And they even promoted Peter Schiff and all these other guys. Where am I? Folks, that proves to you that these liberal they're all frauds. They're all liars. They're not out for you. It's kind of like Bernie Sanders. People think, oh, well, he's for the people. No, he's not. It's a marketing gimmick. If Bernie Sanders was really for the common person, why does Bernie, because he wants minimum wage to go higher. Hey, Bernie, the best way to raise minimum wage is to close the goddamn borders. I mentioned this 10 fucking years ago. He's not for the people. He's fooling people, just like Ron Paul does. You see, he doesn't want to close the borders. He wants to pretend he wants higher wages. When the reason why wages aren't going to go higher is you got to close the borders first and let the economics of supply and demand take over. You see? But people are too stupid to see what's going on. They fall for these scams. They think Ron Paul is on their side. Look at Ron Paul. He got into bed with Porter Stansberry, endorsing Porter Stansberry, the fucking scammer fraudster. Why? Because Ron Paul had his hand out. Porter paid him money. Ron Paul is such a degenerate fraud that he leveraged the trust that people had in him as a politician, which if you trust a politician, something is wrong with your fucking mind. They're all whores. Politicians are the biggest whores in the world. Whores for money. Nonetheless, he betrayed that trust. He was bought off. He used that trust to thrust people under the steamroll of Porter Stansberry's disinformation. You all know what I'm talking about, right? I'm not going to get into that. I've covered that many years ago. So, this is just a little intro here. Let's go on now and take a look at Keene. Okay? Just a little more here. Right? This gets to the specifics. If you're going to come out and claim to have predicted, folks, you got to understand the 2008 financial crisis was unprecedented. The world has never seen anything like it. You can compare it to the Great Depression, but still it was nothing like it because it was very different in many ways. Okay? Nonetheless, it's clearly one of the most important macroeconomic events in history. So if you're going to come out and claim to have predicted it, you have to have provided some specific investment recommendations, because we're talking about ramifications in macroeconomics, ramifications in the capital markets. Okay, so did you do that? And were those predictions successful? Right? And did you, given the limitations of the publications, did you give some guidance on how to manage those investments? Right? For instance, I have the first part of the chapter 12, Cashing Into the Real Estate Bubble. I explain how to short a stock. I explain about the dangers and what you should watch for. I talk about a short squeeze. I explain put options, and I even give it a guideline on when to short stocks. In chapter 17, in chapter 18 and 19, in America's Financial Apocalypse, I talk about trading ETFs, utilizing the volatility of gold and silver ETFs, having exit strategy, right? I go over risk management, right? So, obviously, if I'm on TV on a daily basis, I have a much greater opportunity to do that. But so this was presented in 2006, before there were obvious signs of a crisis, of a financial crisis. So, Steve Keene did none of this. He did none of this. Take a look. He did none of 1 through 4. He did none of 1 through 3. Steve Keene, all he did was, basically, he's a crisis theorist, right? Steve Keene is kind of a broken clock. So Steve Keene, let me explain. Steve Keene's premise is basically that he predicted the crisis because he was warning about debt. Minsky's debt model. Hyman Minsky. So first of all, he's an advocate of some guy from the past who came up with a theory that basically says high debt will ultimately lead to a crisis. Does that sound like anything like rocket science to you? Obviously, high debt at some point is going to be a problem. But you can't sit there and say, well, it's too much debt is going to create a crisis. You have to quantify and qualify that debt. That's why China hasn't collapsed. You have to understand what's going on with that debt in China. That's why the U.S. did, a charlatan named Bill Bonner behind Agora Financial, Daily Reckoning, he came out with a stupid book called The Empire of Debt around 2003. And I think the debt at that time was like $3 trillion. And he's telling you the debt's so high, America's going to collapse. These idiots don't fucking understand what it is about debt. And it's funny because Steve Keene obviously understands that. He understands how the money gets into the system. He's an advocate, or a theorist of endogenous money, how money is created kind of indirectly. The central banks create it indirectly, right? It's as a result of individuals, consumers, businesses borrowing money at banks. That creates the debt. And the central banks create the provisions for the banking system to issue that debt based upon uh, certain guidelines, such as lowering the Fed funds rate. You see, that's what ultimately causes the debt to increase. So it's kind of bizarre how Steve understands that, yet he doesn't understand it's all about the mechanism of the debt, how it's positioned in the economy. He didn't explain any of that. So take a look here. And I'm going to show you here shortly an example of some of the publications he claims that predicted the crisis. Mainly, he goes by something he published in 1995. Can you believe that? He actually believes that he predicted the financial crisis because of some paper that he wrote that talks about debt being unsustainable in 1995. I kid you not. He sent me 4 publications, which his evidence that he predicted the crisis. Okay, and I think 2 of them were after the crisis, so they were in hindsight. And let me mention, by the way, Steve Keen's any of his. He also points to a blog he ran, something debt cycle or some debt thing, which is no longer online. It's kind of weird, but understand that blog when he's talking about real estate and debt, it was all focused on Australia. He didn't talk about it in the U.S. How can you claim to have predicted the financial crisis because you're talking about a real estate collapse when you didn't even talk about the U.S.? That's where the crisis began. That's where it hit the hardest, right? If you're not talking about that, clearly you don't even understand mortgage-backed securities. You don't even understand that market exists. Right? Not to mention the fact that Steve Keen has been wrong on the Australian real estate market for 30 fucking years. He's been predicting a collapse and he's failed every year. He knows that. So, you see, the problem is that Steve claims he predicted it, and then he's got his economist buddies that claim he predicted it. Right? And then so the idiots, the typical stooge, believes it because they're too ignorant and too lazy to vet it. This is why I'm exposing it. For all you idiots out there who interview Steve and claim he predicted the crisis, you're an incompetent loser. He did not. He did not. That's a fact. Steve, let's go. Steve, live debate. Let's go. Okay? Take a look, folks. Did Steve warn about excessive debt? Yes, he did. Did I? Yes, I did. Was excessive debt kind of a core theme of my financial crisis prediction? No, it was not. Right? It was a portion. It was more about how that debt was being leveraged. Notice the word leverage in terms of mortgage-backed securities, derivatives, exotic derivatives, right? CDOs, CLOs, all this stuff put into the market, speculation. There was also fraud involved, which I wrote about. So it was a huge collection of things, not just, oh, there's too much debt. No, that doesn't work, okay? Housing bubble structural analysis, limited. Mine, extensive. Take a look. You've got the chapters I've shown you right there. Take a look. Okay, take a look. Where is it? Where's my publications? I don't know where the hell they are here. Oh, here we go. Take a look. Of course, I begin by opening up and discussing the myths of real estate, how it's not really an investment for the most part, once you account for all the fees, unless you get lucky. Or the exception is California because of the low. See, the property taxes is what really fucks you over the long term. You see, California, they locked it into a very, very low rate considering the rate of property taxes in California. If you look at it, see, every state's got a different. In fact, every state, the property tax is different depending upon the municipality. So every municipality, or I guess you could just say county and city within the state, has a different property tax. That's why it's very difficult to track. So what you have to do is basically kind of take an average for that state. Okay, so let's say, I don't know what it is now, but Dallas used to be 2.9%. Houston used to be like 3.1%. See, so, but California, my point, California in general, if you look at comparable property taxes, they have property taxes that are comparable to the lowest property taxes in the country, which are found typically in the southern, southeastern U.S., Mississippi, western, Arkansas, even Oklahoma, states like that clearly are associated with lower incomes, right? So when you look at adjusted for incomes, adjusted for economic growth and economic opportunity, when you compare the fact, let's just say Mississippi versus California, pretty close to property taxes. I haven't looked in many years, but I would say it's still pretty close. You can look at that and find out for yourself. When you compare that and you adjust for the fact that California has a much greater economic opportunities, much higher income level, yet the property tax is similar to a low economic output state like Mississippi, it's extraordinary. That's why California is the exception where you can actually do well in real estate because of the property taxes. I go into all this, you can see there, but anyway, take a look. Anyway, so that's kind of the intro. There you go. Exceptions. California. Boom. Okay. And so I get into all this stuff. I mean, this chapter is more insightful and valuable, I would have to believe, than any real estate book ever written. I challenge someone to let's debate. Let's go. I mean, think about it. But you see, because it's easy to make that claim because just about all the real estate books you hear out there are bullshit. They're Robert Kiyosaki bullshit, right? Nonsense, where you're not being empowered with intellectual information. You see, because there's no secrets in real estate, folks. Anybody that says there are, they're scammers. People pushing real estate programs are scammers. All of them. The important thing about real estate is understanding what's going on so that you can analyze the market. It's all about understanding real estate value, you see. And when it comes to that, I'm the top guy in the world, right? So I'm the top real estate guy in the world. Remember, Robert Shiller, Mr. Nobel Prize, Case-Shiller Index guy, he didn't come out with a specific real estate decline. His little book was a fucking joke. Take a look. So you can read the chapter. It's all there. I mean, what this book was institutional research is what it was. This was institutional research written kind of dumbed down for the layperson. Okay? Let's get back here. Get back. So you can take a look. Securitization mechanics. I've talked about that. Nope, Keene didn't do it. I was explicit. Institutional exposure mapping. Nope, Keene didn't do it. I named the names. I named the institutions. I even named the credit rating agencies as being involved in fraud. Financial crisis terminology. He claimed recession. Take a look. Quotation. Devastating financial crisis. That was in my book. Okay. Stock bond sell-off warning. Nope. Me, explicit. $1 trillion exposure quantification. Nope. Yes. I wrote about the $300 trillion in derivatives. Okay? Timing specificity, explicit uncertainty, embedded in mechanism, reset peak language. Okay? In other words, what this means is that if you understand the mechanism that I wrote about, once you're seeing it unfold, boom, motherfucking boom. It's go time. You understand? That's what this is saying. So, I didn't write this. This is all Chat GPT. What this table does, it shows that both address debt excess, but the documented record diverges sharply when evaluated on the categories that actually defined the global financial crisis' failure architecture. In your build, and what this means is that my build is, in other words, the criteria that you're looking for the financial crisis. Keen's evidence set reads as macro vulnerability in recession framing. In other words, it's generic. While Stathis's text contained explicit securitization architecture, named exposure nodes, in capital market contagion language. It's fact. There you go. Who predicted the crisis more precisely? Well, that means, did you identify the trigger? Did you map the transmission channel? Did you quantify the magnitude? Did you name the institutional exposure? Did you anticipate bailout dynamics? Right? I mean, are these fair questions, yes or no? Right? Are these fair questions to ask? Of course they are. You can't just say, oh, the market's going to collapse, the banks are going to fail, there's too much debt. That's broken clock charlatanism. Did I just make a new word? Charlatanism? Right? Once again, when you're talking about a crisis of the magnitude that we saw, that destroyed hundreds of millions of jobs, possibly hundreds of millions of foreclosures, certainly tens of millions across the globe, destroyed the retirement savings of untold numbers of people. I don't know how many it did. The job losses, the massive blowout. When you're going to claim to have predicted that, you can't say, oh, the market's going to collapse, it's a real estate bubble. You give me the fucking logic. You show me the goddamn analysis. You put it down on writing. And I did that detail by detail, and it all fucking materialized. Boom, motherfucking boom. And I can say that because I'm the big swinging dick. I'm the numero uno out there. Show me somebody who's on my level. Show me. Where are they? Let's go. And if you say they're on my level, show me their explicit track record. Time-stamped, published. Not what the media says. You show me. Okay? There ain't nobody out there. I know this for a fact. Now, all you idiots out there who never realized before the need to look at these specific things, you need to look in the mirror and realize that you're a fucking dummy, that you're being fooled by bullshit. And it's not just this. In every aspect of what you're hearing is a bunch of bullshit, and you're accepting it through repetition. I started talking 3-4 years ago about all these guys, why they didn't predict the crisis, whether it's Kyle Bass or Michael Burry, and people didn't even realize it until I explained it. Making a bet is not a prediction. You bet on junk bonds? That's subprimes, the junk bonds. Oh, whoop-de-doo. You can bet on junk bonds right now, and you're seeing a weakness in the global economy, and you'll make money. We don't need to have a recession. Do you understand that? The lowest credit-rated securities are the ones that lose the most the earliest during signs of weakness. That's kind of a basic rule that's, I think, common sense. This is why Kyle Bass, Michael Burry, John Paulson, Steve Eisman, the other guys didn't bet against Fannie and Freddie. They bet against junk bonds. They didn't short the banks. They didn't short the home builders. You understand? What you've been told is a fraud. None of these guys knew this crisis was going to happen. You understand? This is the biggest lie I've just exposed in the world related to the crisis. It's a complete myth. They didn't bet on the full shebang. They didn't bet on the higher risk stuff. And I mean higher risk in terms of happening. Higher risk to happen. Because they didn't know a crisis was coming. That's why they pretty much kept their fucking mouths shut until after their trades panned out. You got it? This is the truth that nobody else has talked about. Because nobody else knows this. I'm the guy that predicted the fucking crisis. I'm the guy that was erased from day one. The guy that was trying to help your motherfucking ass avoid losing your retirement, avoid losing your home, avoid losing your job. I'm the guy that was trying to help your motherfucking ass. And what do I get for it? Nothing. Meanwhile, the con artists out there who aren't on your side, who made all the money because they've been promoted by the criminal media as experts, they're not on your side. They're against you. They want to take every single penny from you any way they can. That's the fucking scam. Think about that. And so you can just read this here. Once again, what I did. There you go. Okay? Steve Keen, by contrast, warned about excessive debt. Applied Minsky's instability framework. That's all. I mean, he applied some guy's economic theory of high debt creates a crisis. Whoop-de-fucking-do. You didn't even use your own theory, your own work? I mean, dude, Steve, where's the discussion of the derivatives, of the mortgage-backed securities? Where's the discussion of the credit rating agencies rubber stamping toxic junk bonds into more, investment grade? Where's your understanding of the lack of transparency and disclosure that's afforded to Fannie and Freddie, the only companies on the stock market that had those exclusions? Right? Steve didn't know any of this stuff. When you compare my track record to Steve and anyone else's out there, we're talking about me in a completely different universe. Okay? Versus the other guys out there. We're talking a completely different universe. Not a different level, a different universe. That's how wide the gap is. If you don't realize that, you haven't done the research. Okay? And you do that first and foremost by looking at my track record. If you don't understand reading those chapters, go through ChatGPT on my site and read what ChatGPT has to say. It will help you. Okay? Take a look. Once again, this is kind of just reworded. Did they identify the primary transmission mechanism? Did they specify how the collapse would unfold? Did they quantify the magnitude? Did they identify institutional exposure? Did their forecast align closely with how the crisis actually occurred? Okay? Steve Keen is an economist. He's a theorist. He's a guy that's promoting some economic theory from some clown. And economists don't really know the first rat's ass about the capital markets. I can tell you that right now. Remember, you've got economists out there, and I mean, I think Steve Keen will agree, economics is a useless fucking field. He's said it before, I believe. It's, in my opinion, one of the most useless fields out there. business and economics. Useless garbage. Okay? You have to understand, the field of economics has brought us one of the biggest theories, one of the biggest bogus theories of the investment world, the efficient market hypothesis. You have to understand, when you have economists who are theorists, they don't understand how real markets work. You see, they have the least idea about how real markets work. That's why you got to take what they say with this very small grain of salt. And in my opinion, you're wasting your fucking time if you pay attention to any economists. It's so low yield, extremely low yield. Only someone in a position of good understanding would be able to sift through what's valid and what's not, such as myself. But most people can't do it. So what's going to happen is they're going to get stuck into the bullshit and never see what's going on. Take a look. The 2008 crisis did not begin as an abstract high private debt recession. This is what Steve Keen was writing about. High levels of private debt are bad, and they create a crisis. The problem is that what's high? I mean, the debt has been high for 20 years, more than 20 years. You understand? What's important is to understand the positioning of that debt, many other things as well. You can't just think, oh, high debt? What's high? High is relative, right? This is why Steve Keen's a broken clock. So if anybody knows when the next crisis is going to happen, guess who that's going to be? It's going to be the only person who really predicted the fucking financial crisis. It's me. Okay? Status map that transmission in advance. Quantified housing declines, named institutional nodes, and anticipated bailout dynamics. Steve Keen correctly identified excessive private debt as dangerous and applied Hyman Minsky's instability framework. That was directionally right and intellectually serious. Okay, it's theory. But if you're calling for that like you did in 1995, how does that help anybody? It's a crisis. It's a crisis. You're better off ignoring that bullshit, staying in the market. You understand the real issue here. If you can't really, it's like market forecasting. If you can't tell me, give me some idea of when the market's going to collapse and by how much, or describe a mechanism that enables you to detect the timing based upon a series of fallout, showing the plumbing of the system, how it works out. If you can't do that, and if you don't know at what point to get back into the market, then your forecast is a danger. It's a danger to investors. I don't know anybody in the world who can consistently forecast the markets accurately other than myself. That doesn't mean I'm perfect. You see, I understand what's needed. I can't forecast the market every single month, every single period, because I understand it's very important to have high confidence. If you're not highly confident in something, you don't want to risk people getting out of the stock market, you see. And fortunately, I've amassed a track record that I've been able to identify accurately every single regime transition since 2006, according to ChatGPT. Okay, doesn't mean I'm perfect, because I'm not. But that's the key thing. The key thing, folks, is that if you can't give me some specifics on how much it's going to collapse, right? Tell me how much. Give me an idea of when, or describe in your mechanism how we can detect it, right? Show us the transmission mechanism, the plumbing, if you will, right? If you can't do that, then you're just a blabbermouth. You're just a fearmongerer. You're useless for investors. And that's what we're talking about when you hear in the media. All these guys in the media are that way. Can you name to me a single person who is different, who actually goes over the detail and is not a broken clock? No. They don't, they're not going to put anybody like that in the media. That's why I'm banned. The idea is to put you on the wrong side of the trade as Wall Street, because the media makes their money not from your fucking ass. The media makes their money from advertisements. Okay? And those advertisers are Wall Street when we're talking about the financial media. You understand? The financial media is going to pay more money if they get a better return on their advertisement investment. The best way for them to get a better return on their advertisement investment is for the media's content, the media's experts, to steer your ass into the fucking poorhouse. Now you say, well, gosh, if the media did that, nobody would watch them. That's where the Hollywood illusion comes in. That's where the deceit comes in. That's where the media lies and tells you that Peter Schiff has been right for so many years. You understand? Where they cherry pick things, where the media lies. They create this perception that Jeremy Grantham should be listened to, even though he's a broken clock. Or Michael Burry predicted the financial crisis, even though he didn't, and he's a broken clock. You understand? Because the media knows that most people are lazy and stupid, and they're not going to do the due diligence. If they did the due diligence to check the track records of these guys, they wouldn't even need the media. That's one reason why I've devoted the past near 2 decades of exposing all these media celebrity so-called experts, to show you all that the media is fraud. Okay? So just some more here, another table here showing this is weighing these specific categories. You can see the weights here, and the weighted score, Stath is 17.55 out of 20, Keen 8. And I think this is pretty generous for Keen, to be honest with you. So it's just kind of repetition, restated in different ways. And let's see here. Yeah, so you can see here 12 mechanism categories. So once again, if you're talking about the financial crisis, if you understand what the fuck happened, which by now you should if you're listening to me, do you understand? It wasn't just housing overvaluation. That was part of it. It wasn't just adjustable rate mortgages and the reset, which I wrote about. That was part of it. It wasn't just the interest only and exotic mortgage fragility, which I wrote about. It wasn't just the mortgage-backed security structure, which I wrote about. It wasn't just the asset-backed securities exposure, which I wrote about. It wasn't just about the tranche manipulation, rating distortion, which I wrote about. It wasn't just about the collateralized debt market scale comparison, which I also wrote about, or the GSE exposure, which I wrote about, or the bank balance sheet vulnerability, which I also wrote about, stock market, bond market contagion, which I wrote about, or quantified foreclosure projections, which I provided. It was everything in aggregate. You understand? And how everything was connected. Steve Keen delivered approximately none of these things. Approximately. Let's take a look. What's this table say? Take a look. Take a look at the categories. Keen, explicitly documented, nothing. Look, 0. Mechanism density score, he gets 1 out of 12. Me, 12 of 12. There you go. This is based upon, by the way, Steve Keen's published timestamp work. Okay? Take a look. So weighted components documented. Debt ratio analysis, basically, Steve King gets a 1 out of 20. He just talked about debt. Me, I get a 19 out of 20. Okay? What this table does, it prevents the debate from collapsing into he warned about debt. It distinguishes warning from documented structural architecture. You all understand this? This is fucking critical, okay? And if you understand this, you're going to know more than just about everybody else out there in the world about the financial crisis and about who predicted it. And you can argue now that you know the components, the important components of having predicted it. I'm the guy that did it, the only guy that did it. That's why I backed it. Folks, think about it. I didn't come across ChatGPT. I didn't start using it until less than a year ago. But I've had monetary rewards on my track record for 15 years because I know what the fuck's going on. I know what's out there. Okay? Documentary-based transmission pathways. This exhibit reconstructs each author's sequence using the language structure you outlined. Keen's sequence is macro debt, spending, recession, with financial crisis as overlay possibility. While Stathis' sequence is housing, mortgage products, securitization, institutional exposure, capital market fallout, severe financial crisis. There you go. Take a look. Basically, Steve Keen, he's using his Minsky model, which is, you can look into it, just, higher private debt causes more speculation and it's a crisis ultimately. Well, guess what? A fucking child can tell us that. Okay? Eventually, it's going to be too much debt. The question is, at what point is it no longer sustainable? And for that answer, you have to look specifically into the country, into the markets, into what is exactly going on. And this is why most people don't understand what's going on in China, which I think that I do pretty well. This is why Kyle Bass missed his Japanese sovereign debt bet, 15 years ago. He bet on, you might recall, and I exposed this many years ago, Kyle Bass was betting on Japan to have a sovereign debt crisis. Because why? Well, because they got the highest debt in the world, right? Debt to GDP ratio is the highest, 250%. Remember all that? And it turns out that Kyle Bass didn't understand. I don't think most of these hedge fund managers understand even the critical components for a sovereign debt crisis. Okay? First and foremost, if you print your own fucking currency, the chances of a sovereign debt crisis are fairly low. Okay? They're much lower if you're in an advanced economy for several reasons which I'm not going to get into. Okay? And they're much lower if you hold most of your country's debt internally. Okay? Kyle didn't understand that. Because why? Because Kyle, with his TCU undergrad education in business on a swimming scholarship, his logic was that, Greece and Portugal and Spain in the sovereign debt crisis because they had a lot of debt. And therefore, Japan's got more debt and they're next. I guess my Ivy League chemistry, physics, master's education somehow helped me understand, even though I never had any business or economics courses, understand the fact that, guess what, Kyle? Greece and Portugal and Spain held most of their debt externally by foreigners. Oh, and by the way, they don't print their own currency. They entered the fucking EU, the EMU, European Monetary Union. You see, I can guarantee you none of you all ever heard this before, what I'm just telling you. It takes a pretty good, deep understanding, institutional understanding of the capital markets. You think Patrick Boyle fucking knows this? What do you think? Right? And now the YouTube fucking grifters are being taught. And of course, they'll never give me credit. See, that's the wonderful thing if you're a scammer. You got somebody that's been banned, the top guy in the world that's been banned, and nobody knows. You can steal his stuff and nobody knows. That's why I don't deliver any stuff for free anymore. Okay. Fact is, folks, and I'm not talking about some little fucking chump. Big guys, guys with so-called credibility, institutional credit, they fear me. They would never go up against me and disagree with core portions of my argument because they know they'll be humiliated. They'll be shown the fucking truth. I'm not saying they're all going to disagree with me, right? But if they're going to, you show me somebody that's got the balls to go up against me. And I'm not talking about some fucking little chump. I'm talking about somebody professional, institutional level. Okay? Nobody. They won't do it. You got a lot of shills out there. I mean, you still got most of these guys that want to abdicate free trade and globalization. They won't go up against me. How can they do it? I'm the top guy. I'm the guy that was writing about debunking free trade and globalization 20 years ago in a book when everyone thought it was the greatest thing since sliced bread. And I specifically warned it would destroy the U.S. It would destroy the middle class. It would hollow out our industry. It would cause national security threat through intellectual property and technology transfer. And it's exactly what happened. Nobody else in the world wrote this, by the way. This is the same book that I predicted the crisis in, by the way. I think it's safe to say it takes a pretty special person to cover all these things that I covered. I mean, just the crisis alone is a pretty special person when you combine my trade policy work, my healthcare work, my inequality work, many other things in that book. I mean, quite frankly, I agree with ChatGPT when it says I'm the #1 analyst in modern history. Okay. So, here's his blog, Debt Watch. Now, in this blog, it was all about Australia, Australia real estate bubble. Australia. Guess what, Steve? The financial crisis didn't begin in Australia. In fact, it didn't really even hit Australia. Boom, motherfucking boom. It didn't even hit Australia for the most part. Okay? So these are words that you can see. Actually, this is not correct because you all saw financial crisis is in my book. It's a quote. Yeah, devastating financial crisis. Okay. Massive stock and bond sell-off. In fact, I even predicted in another way. Of course, I wrote about Dow 6,500 as a bottom in that book in chapter 17, but I also in chapter 10. You can see towards, I think, maybe the last page or so, you can see where I wrote, typically, the stock market falls by twice the amount of the real estate pricing. So that if you have real estate falling by 30%, you're going to see the stock market fall by 60%, roughly speaking. Anybody know how much the stock market fell? Anybody know? You can look it up. In fact, I can show you guys the quote if you want to see it. Let's see in the book here. Where is it here? Here you go. Here you go. Newer studies have shown that housing prices have up to 2 times the effect on consumer spending as they do on declines in stock prices. Consequently, if housing prices decline by 25%, the economic impact will be as the stock market declines by 50%. Boom, motherfucking boom. Anybody know how much the stock market collapsed during the financial crisis? Peak to trough. Peak is October 2007. Trough is March 9th or 10th, 2009. Do the fucking math. Okay? I mean, nobody can come close to me. Remember, this is 20 years ago when I was green. I was green back then. I'm about 100 times better today. Okay? Anyway. Here we go. So, there you go. Another table here. See that? Specifics. See that? So, take a look. You can read all this yourself on your own time. And so now you can see we've included Steve Keen. We're auditing his Australia forecast because Steve Keen focuses on Australia. He's an Australian, and you take a look at his Australian track record, which once again, the material that he wrote about on his blog in 2000 was all based on Australia. It had nothing to do with America, which in and of itself is a disqualification. I mean, sorry, dude, you didn't get anywhere near the financial crisis. Take a look. So, take a look. This is his track record on Australia. Major crash and recession. Australia outcome, no systemic crash. His score is 0. 2010, crash imminent. Prices rose. Score is 0. He gets 0 on everything. This is GPT analysis. You can do it yourself. 2013, housing unsustainable. Prices surged. I mean, he shouldn't have a 0 score. He should have a negative fucking score because it went the opposite direction. Let's go, Steve. Come on. I mean, I'll give you the platform. You have the equal say. See, Steve ain't ever going to confront me on this. You know why? He doesn't need to. It's like all these other guys. And I told you, motherfucking losers out there, you don't spread the fucking shit. I can do nothing with no reach. I'm powerless. You ought to see when the fun begins if I got a big channel. All these guys will be forced, they'll be pressured to confront me directly. And then that's when the fun begins. But you see, now they just ignore it. Doesn't matter. That's where you guys are so fucking stupid or lazy or self-serving. One of the three, maybe all the three. I know this from history, from what I've been trying to do for the past 20 years, and I've seen the responses. Lazy, self-serving, useless. That applies to everybody who listens to me. It's that simple. I don't care what you say. Actions speak louder than words. Results tell the story. So, take a look. I mean, even on the Australian economy, I mean, it's virtuous. He gets a 3 out of 36. I'm sorry, 6 out of 36. It's just, it's pretty pathetic. So, let's take a look now. Here's, so this is CEPR. This is a group that is, it's kind of a little Dean Baker and all these clowns. And Dean Baker is, by the way, another guy that claims he predicted the financial crisis because he wrote an article in 2002 talking about real estate prices being too high. Okay, I talked about this before. That's his claim to fame. Dean, I'm sorry, but first of all, you didn't talk about specifics like I did. Talking about real estate prices being too high doesn't equate to predicting the financial crisis or even a real estate bust. Number one. Number two, there was no real estate bubble. Write this down. I repeat, there was no real estate bubble in 2002. Okay? Were prices elevated? Yeah, sure. But there was no real estate bubble. Understand what a bubble is. Okay? You didn't even have all the crazy activity that was going on that created the bubble and created the problems until about 2004, 2005. That's when things heated up to create that bubble. So, but see, Dean's in the same group as Steve. These guys want to tell you that the economists are basically, economists get it wrong. And they want to tell you that they're the only guys that know what's going on in economics. Basically, that's what Dean Baker does, and Steve Keen does that as well. Okay, which is kind of like, so they kind of come across to trash economics to get everybody to applaud, right? And then they spin it and say, well, we know what's going on because here's where they missed it. Wow, you guys are the smartest guys in the room. No, you're not. No, you're not, because I'm in the fucking room now. Okay. And then you got this guy, Dirk Bessemer, which I've emailed a couple of times. And in the future, I'll post the emails, and I'm gonna start chewing this guy out. I've been professional and courteous, but he wrote this little stupid article based upon saying, well, no one got it. Well, here's people that got it. As a way to show like how economics, they missed this, and the guy is so stupid that he included like clowns like Peter Schiff when he was supposed to include economists. He claims that Peter Schiff got it. I mean, I'm going to go through the analysis in the future. You're going to see how much of a, like, this is like he's like a fucking, it's like a high school kid wrote this. It's really pathetic. Okay, and then in a future publication he did, I found out just recently in 2011, he references my book and claims that, but he claims the crisis was as a result of peak oil, healthcare, and other things. And you stupid idiot. No, those are long-term issues that describe the depressionary period that I wrote about in that book. You see, you had the short-term issues, right, that I focused on in the financial crisis, the real estate chapter, other chapters, consumer credit, spending, fiscal issues. Then you had the longer-term issues based on U.S. trade policy, free trade with China, causing inequality, and the connection between that, outsourcing, right, losing your job because corporate America outsources, therefore losing your health care, causing more inequality, right? Things of that nature. So clearly the guy didn't even read the fucking book, and he mischaracterized the book. You'll see this in the future. I'm gonna start slamming him down, and I'm gonna expose these motherfuckers because I'm sick of this goddamn shit. This is fraud. What's happened to me across the goddamn board. I'll go over this bullshit in the future. Yeah, here's the article. Complete horseshit. And take a look at his evidence that these guys predicted the crisis. Take a look. Here's the evidence. Okay? Dean Baker. Now, he doesn't cite Dean Baker's. Dean Baker himself will cite his 2002 paper. Okay? So, but Dirk Bessemer some fucking clown in one of these European countries, Denmark or some place like that. And notice Dirk Bessemer happens to share one characteristic in common with all these guys. The same common characteristic that you see, who always gets platformed as an expert. Yet they're always wrong. You understand what I'm saying? It's the systemic discrimination that no one wants to talk about. Okay? Take a look. So, of course, Bessemer wants to show you 2006. That's kind of intellectual dishonesty, Bessemer. So, because you say plunging housing investment will push the economy into recession, do you think that qualifies as predicting the financial crisis? What do you think? Because he's predicting housing investment is going to plunge, and that's going to be a recession. Let me explain something. Real estate booms and busts are a normal part of the business cycle, the economic cycle, let's say. They're normal. Real estate booms and busts happen every 20 to 30 years. Okay? Roughly speaking. That's normal. Okay? When you hit a real estate bust, that normally does cause a recession. Okay? But understand that, as I wrote about in America's Financial Apocalypse, I wrote that we would see the biggest real estate burst, of the biggest real estate bubble, of the biggest bursting in U.S. history. Because it was unlike any other real estate bubble that we ever had. See, the U.S. prior to the early 2000 period, all real estate bubbles and blow-ups before that were always regional. You didn't see a widespread nationwide blow up. You would only see regional issues. I specifically talked about this. You understand? So what Dean Baker was doing, which is basically nothing of a big deal. There's a big difference between a recession and a colossal fucking collapse. Yet this guy is claiming that Dean Baker predicted the housing crisis. Notice how they frame it, by the way, housing crisis. What's a housing crisis, by the way? Are you fucking stupid, Bessemer? Yeah, you are fucking stupid. You notice how they say that? Why? Well, because he can't say financial crisis because they didn't predict the financial crisis. But so he puts housing crisis. You understand the wordplay there. You see the word games. Just take a look and see. Here's the evidence, right? I mean, you've read some of the excerpts that I wrote. Devastating financial crisis. Fannie and Freddie bailed out by taxpayers, the government, right? Shorting them, to the extent of actually writing a book, advising to short them, to buy puts on them. Predicting the market bottom 3 years before it happened, right? But you see, none of this. This is all broken clock nonsense, right? Remember, Dean Baker began writing about this in 2002. Okay, right? You understand. And it's vague nonsense. And he even puts this fucking clown, and notice the name, Reichbacher. Notice, folks, the names of these guys, by the way. They're all fucking related. Even the author, related. You're not allowed unless you're of their ethnicity. You're not allowed in the media. None of that. You're not allowed in the game. It's discrimination that nobody wants to talk about. I can't even mention it. Because you know who runs ScamTube. And you know what they protect. They protect the criminal fucking mafia. You got it? Nobody can refute what I'm saying. This is all fact. They even point out, look, Steve Keen. Long before we manage to reverse the current rise in debt, the economy will be in a recession. Okay. On current data, we may already be in one. No, Steve, We weren't in a recession in 2006. And once again, recession. Do you understand what the difference is between a recession and a historical, unprecedented fucking financial crisis that causes what essentially was a depression? There's a huge difference. Okay. And this guy is an Agora financial fucking newsletter writer. Okay, he includes this clown. Rubini, another fucking... All these guys are clowns. Look, Robert Schiller, Mr. Nobel Prize winner. There's a significant risk of a very bad period. Very bad period. With rising default and foreclosures. You see how he hedges himself? I mean, this happens all the time. Okay? Think about it. Right? A possible recession. Versus me. And I'm banned. I'm excluded. Now, I emailed him and I sent him the excerpts, and he said, oh yeah, you should have been included on the list. But I'm not going to change it. In other words, he's not going to issue a correction. And I said, what are you talking about? I'm the only person that predicted the crisis. Look at the material. None of these guys predicted it. That's all bullshit. So, this is a after the crisis. You know, hindsight doesn't even qualify. Doesn't know. It's just garbage. Doesn't count, Steve. And so this is now from. This is from his website, I guess. Steve Keen's debt report. So take a look. Okay, he's talking about showing some data, mortgage rates, and okay. But guess what? Look, it's Australia. It's on the Australian market. Somebody, am I missing something? The leading expert on the financial crisis, I think that, am I missing that, did it start in Australia? It didn't even fucking really hit Australia. So, you see, Steve he's way out of the picture. Remember, all he talked about is too much debt. Real estate prices are high. Too much debt. That's it. You understand? Didn't talk about America. Didn't talk about the mortgage-backed securities, derivatives, all that stuff. Didn't name institutions. Didn't quantify anything. It's all Australia. That's all it is. That's all it is. Another post article, and then another post article, 2017. This is what Keen wrote. I predicted the last financial crisis. Now soaring global debt levels pose a risk of another. So he's broken clock, dude. 2017. Another crisis is coming. Oh, you see that? So he wants to tell you. So if you believe this is why I have to come out and set the record straight. Because Steve Keen did not predict the crisis. Okay? You understand what he's doing. Steve Keen is saying it's too much debt because the Minsky model says when they get too much private debt, it causes a crisis. That's like clownish. Let's be honest. That's clownish. Clownish level. Compared to me anyway, right? Sorry. So. Here's the actual publications that he sent me. This is Australia's addiction to borrowed money. I don't care. Australia has no relevance to the financial crisis, Steve. I'm sorry. This is just nonsense. And you saw his track record on the Australian forecasting. It's pretty bad. And this is, what do we got here? March, what is the date? 2015, that's what I thought. March 4th, 2015. This doesn't even matter, right? Going back and, well, I predicted because of this. No, show me in advance, Steve. Doesn't count. Doesn't work. I'm not going to waste my time on it. And this is his Minsky stuff, his love for Mr. Minsky. 1995. Is that right? 1995? Yeah, 1995. You see that? 1990. This is a 1995 article. So basically, he has two articles that he gave me for evidence that were written after the crisis, many years after the crisis, and then two articles. One was 1995 that talks about Minsky's model of, well, private debt gets too much, it results in a crisis. And then the other article is, or the compilation of stuff from his blog, which I guess is no longer there, is on the Australian economy, and you saw ChatGPT analysis of his Australian forecasts. A complete disaster. Okay? So, and Steve Keen is one of the more credible candidates that's been positioned in the media as someone who predicted it. He's one of the more credible ones, by the way. But you see now how utterly ridiculous it is for him to claim, or anyone to claim, that he predicted the crisis. And I say more credible, it's relative. It's a relative comparison when you're comparing it to fucking clowns like Peter Schiff, right? And all these other guys. So there you have it. Now, for the rest of this, I'm going to go over more of my tracker because you can see more depth. But the reason why I wanted to show this is because this is a little disturbing. This is what Steve is doing here. And so here's his channel. And I mean, take a look. This is kind of, take a look at the titles here. Okay. I mean, I've never seen an academic economist call himself top economist, by the way. I guess Steve's the first. So, top economist. It's becoming kind of clickbaity, right? Unthinkable. So it's clickbaity. He's got the truth, right? Everyone else is wrong. He's right, right? Yet Steve won't. He won't. Remember, this is a guy who I've been in communication with for 2 years, and he keeps delaying. I've sent him my files. He's got all the time in the world to respond to YouTube comments and to make these videos. He doesn't have the time to go over and by the way, I offered him $50,000. He doesn't have to put up $1 million. I offered him 50 grand reward. He puts up nothing. 50 grand he gets without risking anything. I did that like about a year ago. He's still, think about it. So he's pulling a YouTube grift here to make money. He has a chance to make 50 grand with no risk, and he doesn't. Why? Because he knows, he read my shit. He knows the deal. He can't wiggle out of it. Folks, this is the relevance of being banned and having no exposure. I get through to nobody. You can tell 100% truth, and nobody knows you're there, and everyone else out there is lying or misleading, and they get all the coverage. They're platformed, and the whole populace believes what they're saying, and they don't even know they're being fucking deceived. That's what we're talking about here. I've been living this for 20 fucking years. Why do you think I know what the fuck is going on? And I know most of you probably don't even believe me when I tell you everything you're hearing out there is bullshit. I'm not saying every single point is bullshit. What I'm saying is the substantial amount of what everyone is saying is bullshit. It's a complete waste of time to even engage, to even listen in anything you're hearing out there. It's all complete horseshit. Yeah, some of it is more horseshit than others, but if you don't know what's going on, you're not going to fucking know. There's no platform, there's no channel, no show anywhere that's telling the full truth. If they were, I'd be the go-to guy on not everything, but on a large variety of topics, for sure. Right? On areas of my expertise, for sure. Of which there are quite a few. But you're getting none of that. Why am I banned? Why is that? Now, of course, on YouTube, all they care about is clicks. It's just the latest person to click. Oh, okay, we're gonna put this person on. Oh, this person's got a lot of views. Oh, we can get more money from this. It's people don't care. They don't care about the truth. All they care about is getting the. This is the problem with ad-based content. You see. And the problem is that people are so fucking stupid, they don't know what's going on because think about it. The vast majority of people, the vast majority of time, come to learn what they believe is reality on virtually everything based upon what they're told and what they listen to. You understand? This is more so today than pre-internet. People are getting ideas based upon what they're coming across. So you have this whole, first of all, you have the confirmation bias that's created through Google algorithms, YouTube algorithms, reinforces complete horseshit. And then what you have is that everyone's saying the same thing. You understand? This is why many people who are not too intelligent and or informed, they listen to me, they're like, they don't believe me. Because, so many things of what I'm saying they've never heard before. See, they're taking a tally, a vote, when they don't understand how the system is. The system is to promote fucking disinformation. That's why I talk about my track record and I show you guys what the fuck's going on. I'm legit. Show me someone out there who's legit like me. Now, you say, well, he thinks he's the only one that's legit. Yeah, well, that's what I've noticed in the past 2 decades. It's not a narcissistic thing. It's just what I've seen. See, because believe me, I've tried to find other people, and there are none. They're all frauds. Every single person out there. I realized this many years ago. The telltale sign is you go to your favorite hero, you think that they're truthful, and you think they know what's going on. In fact, this happened recently to a newer subscriber of my research. Yeah, Mike, yeah, you see what's going on, and you really know. He actually tells me, what's the girl's name? What's her fucking name? I looked up this girl, some fucking clown. I mean, he's naive about media. If you haven't been following me for a long time, then you don't understand about the media. So he doesn't understand. He doesn't realize these people are all idiots and frauds. But some girl who just basically is just getting clicks. She's going to do it. Folks, they don't want to tell the truth. They want to tell you they're telling the truth. They want to pretend like it's all about the clicks and the money. I'm the guy that sacrificed potentially $1 billion for the truth based upon if I were platformed. Based upon my track record, what that would lead, according to ChatGPT estimates. Can you imagine what a speaking fee runs? You all do understand, of course. If I'm speaking to institutions, we're talking $200,000 an hour. You do realize that, right? Now, you probably don't fucking know. I mean, you understand the professional speaking circuit, even, guys like Peter Schiff charge like $50,000, $60,000 an hour, $70,000, $80,000 an hour. And he's a complete fucking bozo. I mean, you understand that, right? So, I've been doing nothing but telling the truth from day one. And you see where it's landed me. That's why it pisses me off, and I'm disgusted at people who know about me who've done nothing, sat on their asses. Self-serving, lazy sacks of shit. But anyway, so take a look. Look at this. World economy is about to change forever. It's clickbait. Urgent warning. I mean, this kind of looks like Tom Nash's channel, does it not? Look at this. They're lying. I'm sorry, Steve. This is not credible. You really, you've lost. If you had credibility, it's gone. Okay? This is clickbait stuff. Are you, Steve, if you're desperate for money, I offered you $50,000, no risk, and you didn't want to engage. You kept making excuses. I don't know what to tell you anymore. But take a look at his latest. Here's the latest one. I mean, by the way, Lex Friedman has this clown on. Why doesn't he have me on? Huh? Why doesn't he have me on? I'm the guy that really predicted it. I got the goods. Because Steve Keen, once again, Steve Keen he's related to Lex Friedman, first of all. And Steve Keen promotes the conspiratorial type of stuff. Oh, well, you understand. That's what, Lex Friedman is disinfo. But take a look. So Steve Keen here. Why the Iran war will destroy the U.S. empire. So you see, take a look. So he's scaring people. He's trying, all these videos he's trying to sell his economics. Real economics in 7 weeks. Folks, if you're an investor, don't ever waste your time on economics. Don't read any economics books, none of that shit. There's two things that are almost useless. I say almost. I'll nuance that here in a second. For investments that many people think are useful. Economics and accounting. Okay? And interestingly, I've never seen an economist or an accountant that knows the first clue about investments. They're always fucking clowns. Okay? It's kind of like, engineers and tech guys who are specific in a certain area and they think that all of a sudden they can do well in tech investments. So the nuance is obviously you need to know a little economics. What you don't know, you look it up. That's how it works. Okay. In fact, accounting. I just learned something the other day. I did a securities analysis and we talked about something. I spotted something later on. I looked up something and it turns out there was an accounting treatment of certain types of assets that I wasn't aware of. Okay? I looked it up. That's it. Great. Move on. You see? The problem with people that focus on extraneous things that don't matter, like economics and accounting, is that it's low yield and you're missing much more important things. So he's trying to basically say, look, this is about the market. This is about investing. I can teach you economics the real way in 7 weeks. Right? He's scaring you with the market and he's bailing you out indirectly. You see that? This is the problem that I have. And it's all based upon his claim that he predicted the financial crisis. And he's kind of claiming that another crisis is coming now. Wow, he predicted the one before. He's going to predict this one. Maybe if I learn to take his course, I can learn and make money in the crisis. That's the problem that I have. Okay? It's a grift. It's that simple. It's a fucking... I could do this because I legitimately predicted the crisis and legitimately, in advance, published specific fucking investments you can make a fortune off of. But even I wouldn't do this because it's too clickbaity. And it sucks in dumb people. It sucks in greedy, lazy, stupid people. You see? It's a very exploitative strategy. It's dishonest in my opinion. And it's not even legitimate because he didn't predict the financial crisis. That's all. That's all. $1 million. Anyone out there, you can use the track record of anybody in the world. Okay? The easiest, I've got two challenges. Been running for 15 years. Okay? The first one is I hold the leading track record in the 2008 financial crisis in terms of accuracy, detail, comprehensiveness, and investment actionability. Okay? If you can show somebody has a better track record than me, and we have legal guidelines for this, is all written. Okay? There's going to be a panel, a neutral panel selected. It's going to go by. We've got all this stuff. Okay? Non-disclosure, everything. Ready to go. Contact us. We'll put you through the initial screening mechanism. And you got to show $1 million in liquid assets you're ready to put in escrow. Okay? We'll go through the process. Anybody in the world. Nobody will do it. I've held this for 15 years. I kept it low for a long time. I started at $10,000, went to 50, went to 100, went to $1 million about 10 years ago. Something like that. Maybe, 10, 11 years ago. The other one is a little more difficult. And that is I hold a leading investment forecasting analysis track record from 2006 to current. And that spans many different areas. Okay? That's more difficult because you're going to know less of what my track record is, right? In other words, you're kind of shooting in the dark there, right? Whereas most of my financial crisis track record is right there. I posted those chapters. You've got the articles on the website, which aren't primary. They're just reinforcing, you see. But the full track record from 2006 all the way current, then you're talking about foreign currencies, trading, commodities, precious metals, forecasting. You're talking about securities analysis, distressed securities analysis, qualitative securities analysis, U.S. market forecasting, emerging market forecasting, securities guidance. Right? You're talking about a lot of things. Much more difficult to do. But I think that even sets me apart even further. I have two $1 million challenges. That in and of itself is enough to make big time fucking news. To be interviewed everywhere on big shows. It's intriguing. And it raises a big question. What is going on? Am I insane? Am I ready to lose $2 million? Or is there a bigger question we don't want to ask? What's the deal? You see, the same platforms that don't want to have me on don't want that question raised because they're part of the problem. So I said, everyone out there is a fraud. Telling you this and that, they're all frauds. Believe me on that. That's fact. Now, if you don't want to believe me, once again, look at who I am and my credibility. I'm not wrong too often. The most I'm wrong is with my investment forecasting, which is not so much. I'm never wrong when you're talking about easy shit like this, pointing out what's going on in the system. I've never been wrong about anything. I'm still waiting to see. I could be wrong, but easy stuff like this, knowing what's going on out there, watching it for 20 fucking years, constantly seeing how nobody's appeared from nowhere, have no expertise, and all of a sudden they're experts. Right? Think about it. Why is that? How is it that nobodies are all of a sudden experts? You know, transvestites that have no background, never worked on Wall Street, and they claim that they're, They're promoted because they promote the right narrative. They're Bitcoin pumpers, they're gold pumpers. They promote the anti-Federal Reserve nonsense. So they're platformed all around the whole bullshit scene. Same with Dave Cullum. Dave Cullum, Tucker Carlson interviews Dave Cullum. Well, because Dave Cullum promotes horseshit. Tucker Carlson is in the Alex Jones camp. You understand? They promote the same. They don't want anyone who's credible and legitimate, because then you're going to get the truth. You're going to start to be able to think for yourself and learn what's going on. They don't want that. That doesn't pay the bills. It doesn't sell you the gold scams and the nutritional supplement scams. You understand that? That's what's going on. Okay? I've said it over and over again. Contact all these people. Make a list. Go down the line. See for yourself. Put up a nice little dossier for me, my track record, what I've done. Send it to Joe Rogan. The response you get will tell you the truth. You understand? Send it to Lex Friedman. Send it to all these guys. They all know who I am. Guaranteed. Guaranteed. They all know who I am. Okay? Make it, and then once you got it, you can pop it out. Boom, 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 boom. Then you're going to understand what's going on based upon the response you get, which the majority you won't get any response. The vast majority you'll get zero response. Guaranteed. See, they'll do that because, oh, well, maybe they didn't see it. They don't want to confront you with what can they say? Right? That's the reality. Once you realize that, you're going to stop wasting time. They're all frauds. Name to me a person. Folks, I spot these motherfuckers from day one. It's so obvious. I spotted Jordan Peterson from day fucking one. Fooled so many of you idiots out there. Okay? There's always going to be the next Alex Jones, the next Jordan Peterson. They're on deck. They're waiting. Okay? They're out there. It's the system that's the problem. The system supports frauds and scammers. That's where they're always going to be out there. I mean, think about it. You have people that have, the vast majority of which have virtually no expertise in anything that they talk about, and all of a sudden they're positioned as experts. It's because the audience is so stupid to not call them out. It's the populace. The populace is fucking stupid. The human population is not worth saving anymore. That's the problem. You all are your own destiny. You've created your own fate, your own destiny, because you all are the ones that don't push back. The human population. This is why I say the human population is not worth saving anymore. It's completely degenerating, especially the U.S. population, the dumbest on earth. Completely fucking mind control. Media. This is the sad reality. I hate to say it, but it's the sad reality. This is my observation from years. The human population has dumbed itself down into demise. And right now, you're all just a bunch of fucking drones thinking that you know what's going on because you tune into Joe Rogan or you tune into Tucker Carlson and you think you know. Yeah. You fucking idiots, man. It's just so fucking sad. It's like it's like the whole population's a bunch of fucking infants out there, and I'm just looking at the kids with the pacifiers crawling in the crawling around. It's really sad because nobody pushes back on all these people. In part, of course, you get some pushback here and there, but the platforms actually facilitate this. Allow the people to ban you and delete your comments. But it goes beyond that. So you play within the confines of the rules. You create your own fucking scam tube channel. I almost said the bannable word instead of scam tube. J-tube. You create your own fucking channel and you start calling these motherfuckers out. That's what you do. Not you, everybody. A large number of people. You understand? It's not going to happen. It will never happen. The system is, it's just amazing. The people have, yeah, it's pretty sad.